Clair Obscur Expedition 33 looks very interesting, and a lot of people are kind of very hopeful for it, including myself, technically, because at the same time, while this kind of looks cool, there are some issues with it, and one of the big issues is that this is by a brand new studio, which doesn't honestly mean anything bad because Wukong was made by a new studio. There are tons of games that have been made by new studios. But the problem with this studio is the fact that, one, they're French, which is a red flag, obviously, and two, I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, they were all ex-Ubisoft developers, and Ubisoft is shit. And sad. Sad shit. Yeah. So I don't know what to expect here.
This Clair Obscur Expedition 33 video, I'm going to be talking about my hands-on time with the game. Recently, I had the opportunity to play about 3 hours or a 3-hour slice of this game. Seems like the beginning section of the game, from what I can tell, and really sink my teeth into what this game is. I actually saw this game at Gamescom last year, and I was a bit...
Wait, I want you to notice this character. Doesn't look 33 years old. That's going to be probably important at some point, because... yeah, I don't know. But at least it looks like a woman.
Skeptical about it when I saw it, which is why I didn't do any coverage. But I've been pleasantly surprised for the most part from what I've seen. I do still have some concerns. But let's get into Clair Obscur Expedition 33. So if you've never heard of this game before, it kind of has an interesting concept where you're set in a fictional world where people are dying when they reach a certain age. And there is this tower kind of in the background with this mysterious figure called the Paintress that every year lowers the number by 1 year. So, as time has passed...
just slightly DEI, okay?
The year in which people are dying when they...
I mean, we want to get those DEI funds, but at the same time, you should think of this as white, because reasons. 10 out of 10, by the way, 10 out of 10.
They reach a certain age is getting lower and lower. So essentially, time is running out for humanity. If they don't put an end to this cycle, eventually no one will be old enough or left alive long enough to stop her. And because this is happening, people have gathered together and trained to spend the last year of their life going and exploring this mysterious place called the continent where the Paintress is. And this...
You see, okay, here's the explanation. Actually, happy this happened because this does not look like a 33-year-old, okay? This looks 23-ish maybe. So why go there? I don't know. Why go through your debt? I don't know. But yeah. So there's a lot to take in here just from the story aspects alone. Kind of cool because the premises is interesting, but at the same time, a society that dies at 33 and they know it. Yeah, a lot of people would not be fine by going to the place that they're gonna die most likely anyway. And, you know, they would just probably... If you know that you're 100% dead at a certain age when it literally takes over, you're probably doing wild shit, okay? You're not volunteering for this expedition that much. And to do this... to send people en masse on something like this, effectively your whole civilization from start to literal finish should be geared towards achieving that goal. AKA completely fucking militarized from day one when you were born. But we don't kind of see it here, so interesting world building, but it doesn't actually go through the sniff test.
This tower with this number is located in an attempt to stop her because they don't have much life left anyway. So they're not sacrificing a large part of their life to do this, but they've trained in order to try and put an end to this cycle. It's actually quite fascinating when you start...
The fact that they, by the way, just send the ship there and the ship just goes there and that's all she wrote. I mean, they would probably have to be literally wasting one-tenth of their lives, considering that stuff doesn't look that advanced. They would have to be wasting 1/10 of their lives literally building ships for people to go there. This is a society that is literally begging for collapse.
Playing it, and it's one of the more unique story and settings that I think I've seen, and the continent itself really reminds me of kind of like Alice in Wonderland meets Dark Souls and the kind of world design that it is. Nothing seems to make
reasonable
logical...
Ah! Feet! Sweet. Nice. Okay, I'm sold. Best game ever.
Sense, or it doesn't need to make logical sense in order to be there. You have like islands floating in the air, and you are in an underwater section where you seemingly can just breathe water just fine and walk around and interact with things that shouldn't be underwater. And I'm expecting to see a lot more of that throughout the full version of the game. But it's very like, you never know what you're really going to run into, and there are definitely characters in there that clearly remind me of characters straight out of Dark Souls and things like that, or Elden Ring. So
the thing about this game, the big thing is obviously that this is Persona, right? The fighting style is Persona, everything is Persona. But Persona wasn't good because of the fighting. Persona was great because of the characters. And can these characters actually make it through? Now, I appreciate feat like any other man does, but that's not gonna honestly be enough to make me want to play this. That's only enough to make me want to go Rule 34 and check what's up. Okay? That's pretty much it.
I think I really, really enjoy that part a lot. And the characters themselves in the storytelling are very well realized as well. The voice actors in this game are some very famous voice actors out there, like Jennifer English, who played Shadowheart and Baldur's Gate 3, or Andy Serkis, who played Gollum. And
oh no, is the man weak because he's a man and the woman strong because mommy vibes? Based.
Lord of the Rings, and Ben Starr, of course, who played Clive Rosfeld in Final Fantasy XVI and is playing Kazan in the upcoming first Berserker Kazan game that is coming out in just a few weeks. And the storytelling and voice acting really help play a role in elevating this game, because the game is kind of linear in the way that you play it. It's pretty much on rails with a little exploration here and there, and the cutscenes in between what's happening in the game, the sort of backdrop of this interesting concept, all play a role in making you compelled to push forward, and it's definitely handled very, very well. And the gameplay of Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is kind of a mix of a JRPG and ARPG mechanics, where you're moving around this very kind of linear, like, landscape, and
the motion blur is already killing my vibes.
Each zone, there is an overworld map, which I'll go into in a minute, but like each area that you're in is pretty much on rails like you would expect in a JRPG. There are monsters roaming around, and once you engage them, you change into turn-based combat where each character has different skills and abilities, and there are QTE attacks. But what really makes it kind of like a hybrid between this and an action RPG is the fact that in combat you can dodge enemy attacks, you can parry them if you can time them correctly, and you can even jump over enemy attacks if you're watching and reacting appropriately to what's happening on the screen. So combat is a lot more dynamic than your typical JRPG, where you're just trying to identify what skills and what spells and what items to use. There's also the defensive element, which really engages you if you're an ARPG player. And initially, when I first saw the game at Gamescom, this is what really made me wonder who this game is for, right? Like, do JRPG players want to have good reflexes to play this game?
Yeah, this seems kind of strange.
And it's a turn-based game, and do ARPG players want to have to wait for enemy attacks to feel engaged in combat, because otherwise they're just doing their moves that...
Also, this is kind of slow, not gonna lie.
I guess have QTE sometimes, which is a little bit engaging. But for the most part, the satisfying part of combat for any RPG player is going to come on the defensive side, when you get that perfect parry or perfect dodge or jump over an enemy's attacks and counter them. That's the part that was really the highlight of combat for me. So it made me wonder, is it gonna...
I wonder how the story is gonna go. So, okay, so there's this rando paintress who's probably gonna be waifu tier, let's be real, everyone knows that. And she wants to kill the world. We're slowly gonna know why we want to kill the world, but then look at these random technologies and shit. Like, she literally casts spells. He also has a Mondapod, by the way, if you haven't noticed. And, like, is any of this going to be explained?
Appeal to either of these sort of players? Well, I really enjoyed the combat of this game. I'm a fan of both turn-based games like Baldur's Gate 3, Pathfinder, and even the throwback Septerra if you played that game a really long time ago. If you know what that game is, kudos to you. And I, of course, love action RPGs. We cover a lot of those on this channel. That should be no surprise. And I love them for their skill-based combat and their timings and their parries and their dodging and all that thing. And I feel like Clair Obscur Expedition 33 really appealed to both sides of the RPG player that I am. It had something for...
Oh, those animations are slightly lame when you get to look at them like that. Oof. And also, did you notice the fact that she's looking in the wrong direction during the fight?
For the turn-based player in me and something for the ARPG player in me. And I kind of got the best of both worlds in terms of those mechanics. So if you're a player that likes both of those types of games, you play Elden Ring and you play Baldur's Gate, then I think Clair Obscur Expedition 33 will probably cater to you. But if you're somebody who only plays one of those types, you don't really play JRPGs or you don't really play ARPGs, I don't know if it's going to be for you. And I just had, frankly, a ton of fun playing this demo, and by the time it ended, about 3 hours or so in, I felt like I was just hitting my stride. I was just learning the mechanics, getting the parry timings down for everything. I was like, the character was getting powerful, and I wanted to keep going. And I frankly felt like the game just does a really good job of acclimating you to the game's mechanics. It does have like a lot of exposition on what you need to do in the game early on, and I felt a little bit overwhelmed, but it's quite simple. It's not overly complicated. Once you understand it, it's more about mastering it than, you know, a huge data dump. So I think they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I don't know. The combat looks This combat looks more fun when you play than actually watch. This is one of those games, probably. Because there's a lot of games like that, but the combat is kind of more fun when you actually do it than watch it. Because watching is, there's no suspense, you're not really waiting for anything, you're just waiting for it to be done. When you're playing, that waiting for it to happen is kind of interesting. So, yeah.
Job here. And there is equipment and loot to be had in this game when you're not in combat. You'll be exploring the continent, finding loot in different zones, and there is a rather large-looking overworld map that you can move around on and engage enemies on. You can travel to different regions.
Oh, wow, this looks like a bunch of fucking nothing, though. Okay, I already had the feeling that this is a bunch of nothing at the start. But now, looking at this here, yeah, this is definitely a bunch of nothing.
Regions on it, you can find loot on it. And level design is pretty straightforward. It's mostly linear, as I mentioned, with players kind of following one track down to a boss fight in each area. That's, you know, they're rather large areas, but that's kind of the gist. And there are kind of some, like, off paths that go from it that have loot or maybe an optional boss encounter. But it's pretty hard to get lost in the game. It's not like open world where you're not going to know where to go. You can also upgrade your characters. Nice. They will level up periodically, and you can equip them with passive effects called pictos that will give them like critical rate or other effects like extra action points when you defeat enemies, things like that. There's also a variety of different weapons that have different elements. And each time you level up, for each character, you can increase their stats. You'll get 3 stat points to spend at checkpoints to kind of tailor-make your build how you want. And you also gain 1 skill point per level for each character, and each character has their own unique skills.
Okay, a skill tree is pretty nice, I guess. Admittedly, are we falling into the same type of situation as Dragon Age Railguard? Because this kind of reminds me of it. It's like, okay, here's skill trees that don't really matter or shit. Here's some kind of random insert things in slot type of stuff that no one really cares about. And yeah, that's kind of all she wrote. I don't know how I feel about this. Not too good. Let me say that right now. But at least the females look like females and the males look like males. That's a 10 out of 10.
With these skill trees that you can place them in, so they all play a little bit differently. And something interesting that I noticed was that every skill on the skill tree that I was able to see, some of them are like question marks, so I can't see everything, are actually all active skills, meaning that there are lots of active skills to unlock on each character, and they're not just like a passive skill tree that makes your attack stronger or you faster. Like a lot of games have these complex skill trees, but it just, a passive effect doesn't really change gameplay. Each one of these is an active skill that will then be able to be equipped by a character that will change the way that character operates in combat if they're using that skill, which I really like. So kind of this means that your build for each character is going to revolve around which weapon you're using, which passive buffs you're using from your pictos, how you spend your...
Yeah, and also looking at this, I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell, obviously, but it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like there honestly is a whole lot of depth into whatever the hell. Look at this. HP, damage, defense, speed, and crit rate. Seems very, very, very simplistic, and everything obviously here is dependent on something. Luck is, for example, crit, vitality is HP, might is attack power, agility is crit? Oh no, agility is probably speed. What am I talking about? And defense is, you guessed it, defense. So, I don't know, this seems kind of super fucking basic.
Attribute points, what skills you choose, and also weapons can level up in the game, get stronger, and also some of them have extra bonuses when they reach certain levels, so there's that to factor in as well. Visually, the game looks very beautiful when you look at it.
Is this beautiful? The only thing I couldn't really like about the game is the female characters. The rest can kind of go off themselves.
Like, some of the environments just had me, like, in awe looking at them. Particularly the underwater environment was, like, really, like, wow, this looks really, really good. And sometimes I wanted to just walk
Does it? Does it actually look that good?
around and look at the scenery. The game kind of has a sprint mechanic where you can move quickly.
Also, what the hell is this sprint mechanic?
Has a sprint mechanic.
Look at this.
Walk around and look at the scenery.
Why arm move fast but leg slow? What? Why?
The game kind of has a
I'm sorry, am I the only one who's noticing this?
good, and sometimes
arm move fast but leg move slow. Why?
I wanted to just walk around and look at the scenery. The game kind
It's just like the arms are double the speed of the legs.
of has a
I kind of noticed that with the girl that doesn't levitate, that her legs moved like fast, but the arms were like boop 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 boop. Interesting.
a sprint mechanic where you can move quickly, and sometimes you don't get to see the scenery as well when you're sprinting, so I just wanted to walk around and see it. But the game visually looks very, very beautiful. Overall, I had a ton of fun playing this game. I wanted to keep playing at the end of the demo, which is a good sign. But that's not to say I don't have some concerns with this game still, and I want to get into what those
What the fuck is chroma?
are to close out this video. So the first one is the dreaded performance concern, and I know especially after Monster Hunter Wilds, people are going, oh god. And it's definitely not as bad as Monster Hunter Wilds, but I will say,
I mean, this is definitely not a game where I would be personally worried about performance, because it's not that detailed, it's not that open, it's that I don't know.
I was getting somewhere between 55 to 70 FPS on a 3080 Ti with a 12900K processor, and I do worry about mid-range PCs if they're going to be able to run this very well. And also, the motion blur was like really very high on this game. There was a lot of motion blur, and it almost made me sick at some points because there was so much motion blur. And even when I went into the settings to turn off motion blur, there was still motion blur. So I don't know if you can actually turn off motion blur in this game, and if they are going to force it to remain on to keep performance better or not. But it's definitely a concern that
I hate motion blur. The first thing I do in literally any game I play is turn off motion blur.
have.
That's the only setting I know what it does.
Secondly, the lip sync during cutscenes is really bad. Like, really, really bad. It's immersion breaking. It's taken me out of the game quite a few times just watching it happen. Even though the voice acting itself is very good and the storytelling is good, the lip sync is bad. And part of me thinks this is because the cutscenes are locked at...
Like, bro, so this lore-wise, this guy accepted going there or something like that, and now he's like, oh, I'm gonna do it. Kind of lame, kind of pussy, my dude, kind of pussy. But again, France.
30 FPS that may have done something to the timing or syncing of these. And 30 FPS during the cutscenes is quite jarring as well. Like, the game feels like it plays or runs pretty smoothly around 60 FPS.
Okay, listen. There's no way this is supposed to be, like, the daughter of those two. Because then they're the shittiest parents, even by French standards, that they're sending their daughter with them off to death. So, this, for some reason, most likely is probably another 33-year-old or something. Which is the strangest thing.
And everything looks pretty good when you're getting that. And then suddenly you go into a cutscene and everything just feels like it slows down and it's a little bit stuttery. So I really hope they unlock the FPS during cutscenes, because it's kind of bad at the moment. The next concern I have is with turn-based and action combat mechanics being in the same game. I really enjoyed it because I love both those types of games. But again, I do wonder if that's going to appeal to a broad range of players, or if it's just going to be some niche players like myself that love games like Baldur's Gate and Elden Ring. Theoretically, there should be lots of players out there that love those two games because they're all very popular games. They both won Game of the Year. But I don't know like what the actual number of players are that play both of those types of games. And the last concern is to do with exploration.
Yeah, see? Her legs are like, damn, that's a firm ass. Her legs are like, and her arms are like, God damn it.
And again, this was one of my initial concerns as well, is that it feels quite dull because the game is really on rails. Even though you can kind of go off the beaten path on a side path and find some loot, it's very obvious where it is. It's not like hidden. There's the puzzle mechanics in the game have.
Again, I don't care about any of this shit. At the end of the day, this is literally a game that is like Persona, where you just care about the story. And when I say Persona story, I'm talking about Persona story as in what happens, the relationships, and all of that stuff. So this is kind of the same. It's like, if I'm seeing turn-based combat, yeah, we're talking about Persona.
Been done 1,000 times. Nothing's very inspiring in terms of exploration. And even though the world feels very beautiful when you look at it, it doesn't.
Again, I kind of don't buy this. Looks cheap and shit, honestly. Final thoughts? No one cares about you because you are fixed to life. 10 out of 10. Bye.